It is anyone's guess what the Montreal Canadiens do ahead of the NHL trade deadline. Should they be sellers? Should they be buyers? They've been wrapped in a couple long losing streaks this year, but still see themselves in the thick of the Eastern Conference wildcard race. So, to help us address some of this, let's bring in Eric Engels from Sportsnet.ca. Eric, I'll ask you right off the top, should they be buyers? Should they be sellers ahead of the NHL trade deadline?
Oh my God! If there's a team that's any more caught in between than those two decisions, it would be the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
You know, they're making this push. They're really day by day. I don't think there's a team in the National Hockey League that's more day by day as far as they are. But could you imagine if Marc Bergevin starts picking pieces off this roster, if they cobble together a bunch of wins? I don't see that happening. But if they start losing games as expected, especially with Shea Weber down for an indeterminate amount of time here, that would be the end, and they would have to consider moving some players.
So let's go down both roads. Let's start with the selling one. If there's a player on this team that would garner the most assets, that player would be?
Well, that player would be Jeff Petrie, but I don't think there's a chance that guy's going to move. And I would even say that they should probably start negotiations on a new contract, because you look 2-3 years down the line, they don't have a player in their prospect system that can replace him on the right side, a guy who can score upwards of 40 to 50 points and log over 24 minutes a game and step in when Shea Weber gets hurt. So, all that stuff considered, I don't think Jeff Petrie is a name that should even be bandied about anymore. I think we can cross him off the list. And I understand that Marc Bergevin would potentially move him if a massive offer came in, but who's going to make that offer come trade deadline? And I think the Canadiens just realize how valuable he is to their team right now and in the near future, and it just crosses his name right off the list. But there is one player that I think could move quickly, and that would be Dale Weiss. The Canadiens are getting a little bit healthier right now. He's on a $2.3 million salary that's expiring. Paul Byron is on his way back to the lineup. Jake Evans has come up and shown some good things. And Dale Weiss, since being called up from the Laval Rocket, has played really good hockey for the Montreal Canadiens, the type of hockey that would help a playoff team. And if they have to make room, I think that's one way they might do it.
So let's go the other way. If they were to be buyers, again, look, the Eastern Conference wildcard race is very, very tight. Montreal right in that mix, as I mentioned. If there was a player that could help this team, who would that player be?
You know what? It's almost an impossible question to answer, because we've for so long been talking about the Montreal Canadiens in sell mode that it's hard to think of anybody as an addition that naturally helps them right away. And we know already that Marc Bergevin will not give up any of his A-level prospects to get such a player. He does have some picks to dangle. One thing that I do wonder about, there's a player in Columbus, in Josh Anderson, who, his name has certainly been circulating, obviously with the injury this year and the fact that his production has dipped, and the fact that he had a tough negotiation last summer and is headed towards another one with the Columbus Blue Jackets. There's speculation out there, obviously. I think a lot of teams would be interested in having him. He's the exact type of player the Montreal Canadiens would love to have. They have a similar player in Joel Armia who's having a breakout season for them, a big right-handed player who can score goals. But Josh Anderson brings an edge and a bite, and I can't help but wonder if the Canadiens, no matter what position they go in here, get into some discussions with Columbus about Anderson. Could they be willing to make a type of swap where they give up a young asset and bring that player in, or maybe a Kovalchuk and a pick and something else? So, I don't expect that Anderson will move before the deadline. I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying, but I do want people to know that is the type of player the Montreal Canadiens would love to target, in addition to obviously making some key valuable additions on their blue line, because obviously that's been a problem for them.
You mentioned a player that I was going to ask you about, Ilya Kovalchuk. I mean, he's been unbelievable since joining the Montreal Canadiens, so much so people think that you could get a pretty good asset back, and you mentioned how you could pair him with the pick and maybe get a Josh Anderson out of Columbus. What should, in your world, the Montreal Canadiens do? Should they keep him and allow the young guys in this team to learn and grow with him, or should they be trying to get more assets? Because I look at the 2020 draft, they already have 11 picks, right? There's only so many things you could do with so many picks, but it seems like his influence on the room has been pretty valuable as well.
This is such a hot button issue in Montreal right now, and you have people in the media, you have the fans saying, if it's going to garner a second round pick on the way out, provided that the Canadiens fall out of the race here, why not just keep him and sign him? And I totally understand those arguments, because everything that's been said about Kovalchuk in terms of his value in the room, his value on the ice, his passion for the game, the fact that he's a bona fide star and still is one at 36, and that's what he's proven over the last 3 weeks. It's also attractive, but if you don't get wrapped up in the emotions of it, the Montreal Canadiens have a consensus top 5 prospect pool in hockey. And one of the reasons why people like their prospect pool so much is because of guys that they picked in the second round recently, be it Jesse Alonin or Alexander Romanov, to name a couple, Yoni Ikonen. If they get a chance to add another asset like that, they can't sit back and say, we're going to sign Kovalchuk for one more year. This is still a retooling team that needs to get younger, fresher talent in the mix. And if Kovalchuk in Montreal is the love affair that we've seen it become, potentially the door opens down the line. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that it can happen,
right,
but the door opens down the line that he gets traded and comes back as a free agent. We don't see that happen very often. The last time we did, Marc Bergevin traded Thomas Plekanec to the Leafs for a second-round pick and another piece in Renat Valiev, and he ended up signing him again. So we'll see what happens. It's a hot-button issue, and I totally get the people that are saying that they should hold on to him and sign him because what he's done so far has been remarkable.
All right, we will see what the Montreal Canadiens do ahead of the trade deadline as well. They are in a really difficult position. Eric Engels, you can see his work on sportsnet.ca. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Faizal.